Hello everybody, it's Dio here from Firm But Fair Gaming, bringing you another BellWright video. Today we are talking about priorities, and this is the beginner's guide, how to help prioritize your workers to make them more efficient and hopefully less standing around time because we know we all love that. So without further ado, let's just jump into it, and here we go. So the first thing we want to do is we want to go into our settlement tab, so press N to bring that up. Go into population, we see our list of followers, so I have a large number of them. And as you can see, we have the numbers between 1 to 9 for each individual task. So across the top, we of course have the different jobs that we want them to do: crafting, smelting, harvesting, farming, all those sorts of things. And then for the people, we can assign them the numbers 1 through 9. So this means for this particular person that I haven't bothered to assign anything, everything is a priority 5. So it's kind of just going to be a random whatever is available that they'll try to go do. So if we wanted them to do crafting first, we would set crafting to number 1, and then let's just put these all in order for this sake for the example. Let me just get this all set, and then we'll blab through it. Okay, so basically what this means is with the priority 1, his first job will be to go craft. So they'll go look at all your crafting buildings and head to there first to try to do a crafting order that is open or that you're wanting to be completed. If there are no crafting orders that are needed to be done, then they will move into the smelting. And then if there is no smelting jobs or that need to be done, then they will move into harvesting, and then they'll go take a look again at the buildings and look at your foraging, lumber, that sort of thing. And if there's one of those jobs that are available, then they will go do that. And then on to farming. If the harvesting is looked after, then they'll go to farming. If there's no farming work that needs done, if there's no seeds that need to be planted, no ground that needs tilling and weeds and all that stuff, then they would move on to lumber. And then, of course, if the lumber was filled, then they would move about delivering items from stockpiles to crafting tables, or from crafted tables or other deposits to the stockpiles, that sort of thing. Then, if there's nothing that needed to be moved, then they would move into cooking. And then, if nothing was to be cooked, then into hunting. And then, if nothing to be hunted, then into research. And basically, because it kind of works where everybody else has got their own priorities, so it goes through the order for each individual one. So somebody else, like for instance, Frank here, is his first job be smelting, so he'd go there first before deviating somewhere else, and so on and so forth. And so even though you might have, let's say we have Averill here set as number 1, but they were off doing something else, and now some crafting was available, but they were still busy. Frank then took over the crafting, and then when Averill's free, even though they might be the better crafter, then Frank is already crafting, so then they would go into the next item in their queue list. So that's basically how that works for everybody, and it kind of becomes a little bit jumbled with everybody moving around. You won't always have people doing what they're best at, unless, of course, you want to try to do here where I just have Belinda and Briscoe they're cooks and deliverers, so that's all they're going to do. So if there's some cooking that needs to be done, then they should be off cooking. The next thing that most people forget about is that buildings also have a priority listing as well. So as you can see here, there are various priority listings for the different buildings. I have it filtered on crafting. So for example, if I was going to Averill here, and when they wanted to go crafting, they would come to this list of crafting buildings and look, and they would start at number 1. So they would go to the blacksmith, and the blacksmith had a task, and they would go there. If the blacksmith did not have a task, then they would look for my priority number 2, and so on and so forth. Now, one thing to keep in mind here is that though this is crafting, it does include some of the other categories in here. Like, for example, the campfires. This would fall under cooking and not crafting. Same with in here we have the furnace and smelter, as well as the bloomery, and those would count as a smelting task. So that, although they're under crafting, they have a different priority system. So for when I want crafting, I'm thinking it's like my armorer, my blacksmith. I have like the tool maker, the simple workstation or workbench, like those sort of things are crafting things. And so those are on a different priority level and within this than the cooking and the smelting ones. So that's why I have like number ones here, and then like I have another number one on the campfire that applies to the cooking one. In here I have my furnace set to number two because I have a smelter that is set to number one. That's for my smelting, and so on and so forth as you get it. So then I would just filter on these and go through each and every one and set different priorities. So for my harvesting here, we have them set up. So the foraging camps and the mud collector, of course, are on a different one than the logging. The logging, of course, will be under the wood cutting. So I have them set up 1, 2, 3, and 4, with the mud camp is 3, and then my third foraging camp is number 4, and then the two logging camps is 1 and 2. Uh, Now, it's the same for all the other types of buildings. I mean, I'm not going to go through each and every one. The gathering here, I'll just say this is water collection. So this will be for farming and cooking. They'll go here and pick things up. So there's, of course, no priority to be set. But hunting, if you had multiple buildings, it's kind of the same thing. They would go through one through whatever you want to set them, and so on and so forth. Same with here. I have all my farms set to 1. That's just because I have more than enough farmers. I went and gathered a few, so all of them are just set to 1. I kind of don't care. They're kind of doing their thing. I have more than enough food, so it's not a priority for me. But if I really wanted, I could, set these up like this, and then they'll go to the first farm, the second, and then the fifth farm, and so on and so forth. So it's kind of rinse and repeat for all of them. You just want to make sure that you have a priority set up that you're happy with. That way, when they go to do their crafting or whatever activity, they know where they're going first. Whereas with everything, if it's just set to 5 all across the board, like is the default option, they may not go in the right spot that you want them to, and then that will just lead to frustration. And it's also important to note that when they're doing certain tasks, they need, if they're to crafting something, they need the resources. And if they're not set to delivery or something like that, and nobody's bringing the resources to them, then they kind of can end up sitting around idle. Or if they're supposed to be foraging, but there's absolutely like nothing around in the area to forage, like there's no mushrooms or berries that you have them set to order, there's no wood to pick up, then they're going to stand around idle because there's just nothing to do. And then, of course, make sure that there's always axes and shovels and all the necessary equipment that they need to do the certain tasks that they need to do. Because without those things, also they will end up being idle as well. So that brings us to the end of the Priorities Beginner's Guide video. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know below. I hope you did find this useful. And as always, we appreciate like, share, and subscribe. So please click those buttons. And of course, you can come find me on Twitch. I stream Sundays and Tuesdays. And if there's any other parts of BellWright that you are curious about, also drop it in the comments. I'll do my best to answer it as well as I can. And until next time, I hope, like I said, I hope that you found this helpful. So I hope that you find yourself with much more productive workers. I know that I found a dramatic increase in just how fluid my base was running after just, like I said, setting up the priorities and getting a little bit more of an understanding of how they work, and especially setting up the building priorities and understanding which ones were impacted by which work attribute, if you will. And yeah, so that's all for me. I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you in the next video.